Hello aspirants. So in this video we are going to talk about the strategy or important topics. So not to say strategy, the important topics that you have to focus for prelims with respect to economy or Indian economy subject. So the important, so I'll write here important topics to refer for prelims 2024 with respect to which subject, that is Indian economy. Now Indian economy as a subject is important for your exam, that is UPSC civil service exam. Now why it is important? Because it is going to give you good marks. So you will find good number of questions. So you can check at least last 5-year papers. So you will find more than 10 questions, that is minimum 10, maximum 23, 24. So it means you cannot neglect this subject. Now in order to score good marks, you must know what topics have to be studied and what you have to leave. Now when I am talking about this subject, so I am not here going to talk about broad topics. I will tell you the subtopics that you have to study. So when it comes to growth, so in growth chapter, you have to talk about, or which is also known as national income. So in that chapter, you have to know about GDP, that is what is GDP. Now apart from knowing GDP, you must also know what are exceptions and limitation to GDP. So that is important for your prelims. Now for example, if I give you some hint, like you know that whatever embassies we have in India, or you can say foreign embassies that we have in India. So if you have come to Delhi, so you see that in Delhi there is, or you can say there are US embassy, German embassy, Japanese embassy, Sri Lanka embassy, so many embassies of all the countries. Now whatever economic activity is there, that is final goods and services activities there in that embassy which are located within our country, they are not part of Indian GDP. So this is an exception to GDP. So there are other exceptions also. So you must know that. So if question comes in your exam with respect to these things, that while calculating GDP, we used to measure final goods and services produced within the India or within the territory of our country. But some of the final goods and services produced in certain territory, or you can say in certain part of our country, are not included, and these are, so if you don't know that embassies, in embassies what economic activities are there, they are not part of Indian GDP. So this is what you have to remember. Second, you must know the concept of GNP. So when I am saying concept of GNP, so you don't have to remember the formula, what is the GDP and GNP formula. Here you must know the difference between GDP and GNP. Third, you must know that why we subtract depreciation from GDP and GNP in order to get NDP and NNP. So ultimately, you must know the concept of depreciation. So this again you must know. Next, you must know the concept of base year. Sometimes written as base effect. So this is what you must know. Base year or base effect. Or you can say criteria on which base year is selected. Criteria on which base year is selected. So this is what you must know. Clear? So these are the things that you must know. Next, you must also know the concept of, so please note these things because it is very important. Concept of market price and factor cost. So this again you must know. Similarly, you must also know the concept of real and nominal GDP. So these are the things that you must know. And finally, GDP deflator. Okay, so GDP deflator you will understand once you understood the concept of real and nominal GDP. So these are the things that you must know with respect to growth chapter, or you can say national income. Now, apart from this, there are some terms you must also know that for your prelims exam, and these terms are like what is national income, what is national disposable income, what is personal income, what is personal disposable income. So these things you must know. So if you know these things, you can easily solve the questions of GDP, or you can say question coming from this topic. So I am telling you the subtopics also. So it is not like that I am telling you the broad topics. Although with respect to broad topics, I have already made a video, so you can refer that. So these are the things that you must know. So if you are not preparing these things, it means you will not able to solve question from this. So this is very, you can say very must or mandatory that you must know about these topics. So if you see, these are the topics that you have to cover in. So if you are able to do this, then you can check previous year questions also, that you can easily solve the question. So it is very much important with respect to growth chapter. So you are studying from any source, XYZ, whatever source you are referring. So you have to make sure that you are covering these topics. Then only you can solve the questions of previous year. Plus, you can solve the questions which UPSC ask in other exams like CDS, engineering services. So then that you can also solve for your practice only. Although ultimately your goal is to crack IAS exam. But for practice, you can see that you can solve those questions also. Even if you have a good hold over these concepts or these things, then you can easily solve the mock test questions also, which tells your preparation level. So this is what it is very important. Now, next is another chapter, inflation. Now, in inflation, you must know the types of inflation, number 2, reasons for inflation, number 3, impact of inflation, Number 4, measurement of inflation. And number 5, solution of inflation. So these are the 5 topics. Now, out of these 5 topics, measurement of inflation, where you will study about consumer price index, you will study about wholesale price index that we call WPI, CPI, as well as there is producer price index. This you must know. Okay. There is producer price index. So these are the things you must know. Clear? Now, this measurement of inflation, I can say with surety that it is very, very important. Or you can say number of very you can put. So it is very, very important. So in your school days, you used to mark, or you can say just before the exam. I hope you remember it. But if you have done so, like in my school days, I know this thing that whenever exams are near, so just before the exam, the school teacher used to tell us that these are the important topics. And while telling those important topics, she used to tell us that these are very, very important. So it means teacher is giving hint that question will come from this. So again, I can say that when I am saying very, very important, so I am just giving you a hint that this topic is important. Why? Because if you see the previous year question, so you will find that on alternate basis, they have asked a question from this. So if you see from 2011 till 2023, so we have just that paper. Okay. So in those paper, you will see that every year at least one question, or not to say that every year, but out of you can say in last 12 years, so at least 7-8 questions has been asked from measurement of inflation. So you will find question on CPI, WPI, difference between CPI, WPI, basket size of CPI, basket size of WPI, who publish WPI, CPI, base year, committee related to WPI, CPI. So these are the things they have asked continuously. Next, impact of inflation is also important. Clear? Reason for inflation is also important. So these 3 topics are very, very important. Okay. These 3 topics are very, very important. Although the chances of asking question from them is very less. But these 3 are very, very important. So this is what you have to remember. Now moving further. Now the next topic is monetary policy. Now under monetary policy, you must know the types of monetary policy. Now monetary policy, there are 2 types, contractionary, expansionary. So under contractionary and expansionary monetary policy, you know that when we talk about contractionary and expansionary, so you must know the concept behind that, plus in which situation contractionary and expansionary monetary policy will be used. So that is important. So ultimately types of monetary policy is an important area for your exam. Second is tools. So again here with surety I can say it is very, very important. So when I am talking about tools of monetary policy, tools of monetary policy. So here I talk about quantitative tools, and qualitative tools. So under quantitative tools, we used to talk about further, you can say there are some tools under quantitative like bank rate, repo rate, reverse repo rate, marginal standing facility, liquidity adjustment facility, cash reserve ratio, statutory reserve ratio, cash reserve ratio, statutory reserve ratio, and open market operation. So I'll write it here. So you will find that question used to ask from this area, like if repo rate is increased, what will happen on money supply? Yeah, if we want to decrease money supply, which will be the following action taken by the RBI? So ultimately there are options like repo rate will be increased, decrease, bank rate will be increased, decrease, CRR will be increased, decrease, whatever. So any question. So if you know the concept, you can easily handle this. Qualitative tools. So similarly, we have qualitative tools like moral suasion, okay, moral suasion. Next, here direct action, margin requirement, etc. So there are some tools that you have to remember, okay, margin requirement, etc. So these are the some tools that you have to remember for your exam. Clear? You have to remember for your exam. So this is what is important. Clear? Now moving further, another thing that is important for this exam is, for monetary policy topic is, so we'll just see the number. So the third number is that is important is monetary policy committee. So when you read monetary policy chapter, so these are the subtopics that you have to cover. Okay, monetary policy committee. So you know that 6-member committee is there. So you can check 2017 question. They have asked question from this monetary policy committee. So this becomes important. Clear? Monetary policy committee. Next, if you see, apart from this RBI function. Now, I don't know, this topic is important for UPSC. So every time they ask one question, or you can say you will see the repetition of the question, that is lender of last resort. So they have asked it multiple times. So you can check the previous year question. So you will find this question, why RBI is called lender of last resort. Okay. Similarly, you must know the other functions of the RBI. That RBI manages forex reserve, RBI manages debt of the government of India, RBI is banker to the government of India or act as a banker to the government of India, RBI provide license to other banks. Okay, so ultimately you must know all the functions. So one of the function is lender of last resort. So that is the favorite, you can say favorite question of UPSC. So you can say last 2 or 3 year paper also you will find this question. Okay. Apart from this, you must know the concept of money multiplier. Now this is again important for your UPSC. So in money multiplier also they have asked a question. So this is what you must know. Clear? Now next topic that is important is fiscal policy. So here you must know the components of budget. So here you must know the component of budget. So when I am saying component of budget, so I am talking about revenue, expenditure, capital expenditure, revenue receipt, capital receipt. So I am talking about that. So you must know the component of budget. Second, you must know deficits. So you must know what is revenue deficit, what is fiscal deficit, what is effective revenue deficit, what is primary deficit. So you must know all these deficits. Next, you must know the impact of deficits. Or you can say impact of borrowing. Fourth, you must know the concept of, or you can say FRBM Act. So these are the topics which I have mentioned for growth, inflation, monetary policy, or you can say fiscal policy. They are for prelims only. So I am emphasizing on prelims part because prelims is the first step that you have to clear in order to write mains. Okay. So fiscal responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003. So this you must know. Clear. Next, apart from this, you must also know the concept of public debt. Also, you must know about the committees related to FRBM. Clear. So you must know the committees related to FRBM Act also. So these are the things that you must know with respect to your this chapter. Clear. Moving further, when it comes to banking chapter, so another important topic. So here you must know about different types of banks that we have in India, like scheduled commercial bank. Number two, regional rural bank. Number three, NABARD, National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Now I am telling you the full form of NABARD. So there is one interesting story. Now what is that interesting story is that once I asked my students in class that what is the full form of NABARD, so they get confused. But UPSC used to conduct one exam that is known as EPFO, that is Provident Fund exam. So this is a separate exam. So although it is conducted by UPSC, so once in that exam, they have asked the full form of NABARD. So UPSC used to ask such questions also. So you have to be ready. So sometimes we read some abbreviation, but we don't know the full form. So it is very important that you must know the full form also. Clear? So NABARD is known by all of you, but you have to remember the full form also. Clear? Next, if I talk about another bank like Small Finance Bank, Payment Bank, Payment Bank, Mudra Bank, and NBFC. So these are the banks that you must know for your prelims exam. Okay. So this is I am covering in this part, although I'll come with other part also where I'll talk about other topics. So today I have talked about growth, inflation, monetary policy, fiscal policy, and banks. Now whatever is left, I'll talk about in some other. Although StudyIQ team has developed, or you can say we have published one book, that is second edition of Indian economy. So you will find all these topics there also. So it's your choice. You want to study from that book or any other. But the ultimate intention is that you study these topics from any source. So the overall purpose that you crack this exam. So this is the overall purpose. So either you study from Google, study from any source, but at least study these topics. You will find topics. You will find question from these topics. Clear? So I hope you get benefit from the list of topics that I have told or given you. So I'll come with the list for next topics also or other topics also, but you have to wait for that. Okay. So we'll meet soon. Till then, have a nice day and Jai Hind.